everybody probably picked up on this in the last couple of days. There's kind of conference talk going around all of college football with the major conferences kind of looking at their formats and their setups. And I think the ACC is actually further out in front of this in terms of really starting to look at things seriously about the way the division's structured, the conference, the way the championship games played, all of this leading into each conference trying to figure out what's best for them in setting themselves up for an expanded playoff and getting the most teams into a playoff, getting the best team into a playoff, not getting possibly into a situation where we've got, let's say, an 8-4 team that pulls off an upset in the conference championship game, and it's not the team that we would like or a deserving team into the playoff. So all of that's being reviewed right now, and certainly the ACC would be front and center in terms of being the poster child for, because of the Coastal Division, of sending or coming within one game of sending some pretty marginal teams to a college football playoff down the road when you consider Pitt's been 7-7 and won the Coastal, and Virginia's been a pretty mediocre team, won the Coastal. A lot of Coastal Division winners have been pretty weak, and again, came within 60 minutes of getting winning the ACC championship game. So a lot of reformatting talk going on. What are your thoughts? Any preferences on how they should do this?
Yeah, early thoughts so far. Obviously, you're competing too with SEC and trying to keep the entertainment value there, and maybe Duke creeping in, which we aren't expecting them anytime soon to be to the ACC championship, but a Duke like that facing maybe another team and the other division that isn't so swell, isn't so appealing to maybe the broadcasters, or that realm too. The big money goes there, and so I think in Florida State's spot right now, there's no way that in Tallahassee we can talk about man, this would really affect us for those ACC championships every year. Right now they're fighting to reach the bowl game first, but just all in all, this is a futuristic thing that could be implemented as early as 2023. And, the biggest thing I'm keeping an eye on here is that they're looking to have 3 defined teams a year that you're facing. And obviously, I don't think the ACC can go in and alter away Clemson. They most certainly can't alter away Miami. So those have to be solidified. And then you got to figure out who's going to be that team that's also in there every year. I see you got something to say about that too, Mark, on what they're trying to do with that. But overall, it's about getting better in the ACC. I personally like it. I think the ACC is trying to do some catch up here, trying to make some changes quick before God knows what happens in 2 to 3 years when God will have a mega conference left and right. They'll have just a gigantic, we're going against the NCAA now. Screw it. We're going to go just college football playoff committee. What are we doing here? And the ACC is trying to do some things quickly, but the biggest thing to me is those 3 defined games. Which ones are those? And you most certainly, like Michael Alford, Florida State's athletic director, said, 2 out of 3 teams, that has to be Clemson and Miami. Although I think some fans too wouldn't be too opposed of saying, I wouldn't be bad to take a year off of Clemson and maybe just see them in the ACC championship, which wouldn't mind on that either. But, I think Florida State wants to stay competitive no matter what. Florida State, Clemson every year regular season is going to bring in views. It's all about TV and broadcasts and the ratings there and the money dumped into that. And Florida State gets majority of their money there in revenue in that case. So that's a big, big part of all of this. So I don't know. What are your thoughts, Mark, on this? Because you probably have seen maybe a little bit more, or, you kind of cover this college football landscape a little bit more than I do, for sure.
Well, what you're hitting on is kind of an interesting balance that these conferences have to hit on, because they do want to make as much money as possible. So every time they devise a schedule and it doesn't result in Florida State and Clemson playing, for example, that's one of the bigger money makers of the year. Even on a down year, for Florida State. So they definitely want to keep those games. For example, the Big Ten for the longest time before splitting into divisions, there was never a season Ohio State and Michigan didn't play. There was never a season Ohio State and Penn State didn't play because they just wanted them on the field for the TV revenue. So they're going to be looking at that. But at the same time, if you ensure the best teams always play, you're racking up losses and you're possibly going to knock a team out of an at-large spot in the playoffs. That's a possibility too. So my thought when you talk about the 3 designated teams is there's no doubt Miami and Florida State have to play every year. There's no doubt North Carolina and NC State are going to play every year. They're going to set up the rivalries. The real rivalries need to continue. Now, in terms of setting it up to a format, and I read the same thing in terms of keeping 3 teams that would be, I'm not understanding that. It probably works. The math probably works out, and that's one of the driving forces, but I don't know why there has to be 3 designated opponents for Duke. For me, Duke should play North Carolina every year because of the proximity and because they're rivals, but I can't think of anybody else in the conference that needs to play Duke. So why build a system where there are 3 forced matchups for every school when there aren't 3 matchups that make sense? I'm not getting that.
I was just saying real quick, Mark, this feels like a perfect subject for someone that's not on the show right now, because we know who loves schedules and going deep diving into every kind of component that could eliminate someone from a contention of getting 6 or 7 wins. And this would be Jason's topic right here. But yeah, it's got to be all with Matt, the commissioner there, whatever they've got to do to kind of solidify the scheduling. And that, it could just still be chit chat. But this is the ACC, so I don't believe anything until it's solidified and done, and I see it firsthand in person, because this is a conference that is really, has its ups and downs. Now that basketball, now you're seeing these other Big 12 teams in basketball, like now the ACCs, man, they're struggling. Definitely if Clemson and Florida State can't get up to that high caliber, it hurts quite a bit. But I mean, you're seeing other teams on the come up. You're like Pittsburgh, you've got other teams that have some potential. North Carolina was supposed to have a big year last year, and that was a total disappointment right off of week 1. So you're trying to just, you're not shredding it all whatsoever, but you're just trying to find something that keeps you in those top conferences and the Power 5. Don't you think, Mark? Like they're trying to just keep themselves afloat a little bit here. I don't know.